Hi, everyone. Hope everybody has had a great week so far, and thank you for joining. Just going to give it a couple of seconds here as people continue to kind of trickle in, and we'll get underway in just a few seconds. Okay, sounds like we can get started. Thank you again for everyone who's attending right now. Thanks for your time. We're here to talk about data security and PCI DSS version 4.0, specifically how your organization can prepare and implement compliance. My name's Connor. I'm the product lead here at CSS, and I'm here with Ashok. Ashok, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Connor. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashok Mahajan, and I'm a senior partner solution architect at Amazon Web Services. I've been with InfoSec for over 18 years now, with expertise in identity and access, application security, data protection, and cloud migration across multiple domains. Here at AWS, I'm part of a global startup team focusing on security startups. And in my role specifically, I work with these security startups in their enablement journey on AWS that focus on co-build and go-to-market motions.
Spectacular. Thanks for the introduction, Ashok, and we'll get started here. So, when we talk about compliance and specifically malware scanning requirements across the board, and more, a lot of these major frameworks are starting to mandate malware scanning. Particularly, as you can tell from the title, today what we're going to be talking about is PCI DSS version 4. And there's a couple of unique requirements in there that basically necessitate both a event-based and also scheduled malware scanning with new definitions. When we talk about a lot of these, they're pretty easy. The vast majority are turn on the malware scanning solution, make sure that you have proof of that scanning. But in PCI DSS terms, it's a little bit more complicated, and that's what we're going to take you through today. So we'll start a little bit with what PCI DSS is, and as well as some key dates. So it's maintained by the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council, and it applies broadly to all organizations who have any sort of payment card information within their CDE. And we'll cover that definition later. Version 4 is the latest version, and it was released to the public on March 31st of 2022. And the purpose of this was to update and modernize the guidelines, including the vast kind of shift over to the cloud. Services like AWS or Amazon Web Services are becoming kind of the basis for a lot of organizations building new applications. And so they wanted to make sure that everything in this new technology was appropriately covered. So the transition period last year on March 31st, PCI DSS version 4 became best practice. And that means that it wasn't in scope of audit. But as of April 1st, 2025, PCI DSS version 4 is fully in scope and is subject to audit. We talk about that. It's mandatory for all organizations storing and or processing payment card information. So who does PCI DSS version 4 apply to? And this is a direct quote from the PCI Council. It applies to all entities that store, process, and or transmit cardholder data. So it covers both technical and operational system components if they are included or connected to cardholder data. If you're a merchant who accepts or processes payment cards, you must comply with the regulations set under PCI DSS.
Connor, one thing I want to like to add here, right? It is critical to understand from a PCI DSS perspective the complete flow of data within the application and the environment. The evaluation of data flow in the environment, as well as all the connected to and supporting system, is essential for determining the applicability of these requirements. So in excuse me. So in simple terms, basically, PCI DSS requirement apply to the entities within the environment that even do not store, process, or transmit account data. For example, like entities that outsource payment information or management of their cardholder data to third parties remain responsible for ensuring that account data is protected by third party as per the applicable requirements.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashok. Before we continue and kind of dive deep into PCI DSS, we want to lay out some key terms here so that everybody's on the same page. PAN or primary account numbers is the payment card number. So think of a credit or a debit or a prepaid card number that both identifies the issuer as well as the cardholder account. What's arguably more important is the CDE. And so this is the cardholder data environment. And this is the system or network group of systems that process, store, or transmit any cardholder data or sensitive authentication data as well. What we'd like to call out here is if your cloud environment processes, stores, or transmits cardholder data, it is considered in scope of the CDE or cardholder data environment, and it is subject to regulation and compliance with PCI DSS version 4.
Yep. And Connor, I would like to introduce one more term here, which you often hear related to compliance, and that is control. And I want to make sure everyone understand what a control is. A control, in simple words, could be a people, process, or technology whose purpose is to reduce some element of risk to an organization. So, to give an example, it is often a security configuration, but it can also be a thing like administrative process or a program being developed within a company. It could be as simple as requiring a badge to enter a building. It could be a firewall rule, or it can even be an HVAC system in your office or data center. So it is important to understand this definition because you will hear this word a lot when you talk about compliance and these requirements.
Thank you, Shook. Absolutely. We'd like to highlight the fact that PCI DSS version 4 applies to the entirety of the CDE or the cardholder data environment, including object storage, when that type of information is being housed or transmitted or stored there. We talk a little bit about the data blind spot. So, this is in some ways a justification for why malware scanning is truly needed and kind of giving you a window as to why these new regulations include malware scanning. We'll ask those questions. Are you familiar with all the files being uploaded into your environment? A lot of organizations will take payment information, they'll take resumes, they'll take data scraped from the public internet, maybe. Um, and probably the more important question is, do you trust the data that is being ingested and then processed or accessed by your customers, your partners, or your employees? So, especially when we talk about the public internet and your partners, you must trust, but you also must verify the fact that it is free of malicious code. Following up with that, do you have a way of guaranteeing whether or not these ingested files are clean of malware? And that's where malware scanning comes in. In 2024, about 40% of data breaches were cloud based. And so this is something that kind of demonstrates why malicious code is increasingly actually targeted when we talk about cloud storage, as well as other risks such as misconfiguration. And the final part here is that attackers recognize this downstream risk and they will take advantage accordingly.
Connor, in your previous couple of slides, you talked about the use of AWS and a general trend towards a shift towards cloud as well. So in the industry, I think there's a general shift towards cloud native security services and features as well. With the increased adoption of these cloud native services, business are shifting more workloads towards cloud, and there's a need for a cloud native solution as well. This includes using security tools that are natively integrated with cloud provider, such as cloud native firewalls, security groups, and even security policies. At Amazon Web Services, security is our highest priority. As an AWS customer, you benefit from AWS global infrastructure that spans 114 availability zones within 36 geographic regions as of this date. So basically, a network that is architected to protect your information, identities, application, and devices. When it comes to security and compliance, AWS offers you a variety of native services and tools, as you can see on the screen, uh, which you can choose based on your specific use case. Just to give few examples, you can use Amazon Guard Duty to identify malicious or abnormal activity. Guard Duty can help you address various compliance requirements like PCI DSS by meeting intrusion detection requirements mandated by these compliance framework. AWS Security Hub is our cloud security posture management, which helps you aggregate findings to provide a single pane of glass for security team. It supports PCI DSS version 3.2.1 and even version 4 as well. You can use Amazon Inspector to quickly discover vulnerabilities in your compute workload, such as EC2 instances, containers, or even Lambda. While we talk about these services that AWS offer to meet your specific needs, it is also important to understand the core of security at AWS is the shared responsibility model. Security and compliance is a shared responsibility between AWS and you as a customer. So let's talk about that in the next slide. AWS shared responsibility model can help relieve your operational burden as AWS operates, manages, and controls the component from host operating system and virtualization layer down to the physical security of facilities in which these services operate. The responsibilities here are often differentiated, where AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, where you as a customer are responsible for security in the cloud, and your responsibility is determined by the AWS service that you use. This means you secure workloads and applications that you deploy onto the cloud and have the flexibility to put more emphasis on security of sensitive data and adjust as and when you need where you have less concern. You own and are responsible for managing your own data, including encryption options, classifying your assets, using the right IAM tools to apply the appropriate permissions. It is important to understand this distinction when you are setting up your workload, especially in relationship to compliance requirements, so that the proper controls can be set up to meet these requirements. This basically determines the amount of configuration work you must perform as part of compliance requirements for system components and resources connected to your CDE in context of PCI DSS. Before we talk more about how AWS and CSS can help meet these requirements, let me pass on the control back to Connor to talk about what are these PCI DSS requirements 5 and its sub requirements.
Thank you very much, Ashok. We're going to start off with, like Ashok said, requirement 5. So this is intended to protect all malicious networks from malicious software. So including object storage as well. Let's start with section 5.1. And this cites that processes and mechanisms for protecting all systems and networks from malicious software are both defined and understood. So when we talk about this, we want to make sure that all security policies, all operational procedures that are identified in requirement 5, this includes malware scanning, are documented, kept up to date, in use, and known to all affected parties. In particular, this is a training exercise, and it's very important to make sure that when we talk about these security tools, both AWS and CSS, that you have the processes that you take to be documented and make sure that all affected parties are appropriately trained and know what they're doing if an incident were to arise. Section 5.1.2 documents that roles and responsibilities for performing these activities need to be documented, assigned, and also understood. So dividing responsibilities, a structure, and also an incident response plan as well is contained in this section. Section 5.2 documents that malicious software or malware is prevented or detected and addressed. 5.2.1 talks about an anti-malware solution deployed on all system components except for those system components identified in periodic evaluations per requirement 5.2.3. Please note that this includes cloud storage volumes such as Amazon S3 buckets. And in particular, this goes back to that concept of that CDE or cardholder data environment. If this cardholder data environment processes, stores, or transmits any sort of cardholder data, it needs to have malware scanning applied to it. The same thing, of course, would also apply to a local machine or even a virtual machine or an application. We want to make sure that there's malware protection everywhere, implementing some sort of defense in depth, as well as making sure that there is absolutely no chance that a piece of malicious code makes it down onto a local machine where it could actually detonate. Maybe if it's an info stealer, it could actually steal that sensitive data. Um, that is the worst possible outcome, and that's what we're trying to prevent here. Section 5.2.2 talks about how this anti-malware solution needs to detect all types of malware, all known types of malware, and it also must remove, block, or contain all those known types of malware. So when we talk about it, that needs to be something where definitions or signatures are updated regularly and on a consistent basis. There also needs to be, in some form or another, a quarantine mechanism or maybe even a detonation mechanism in some sort of sandbox or safe environment. Moving forward through 5.2, the any system components that are not at risk for malware need to be evaluated periodically to include any of the following. And so this essentially comprises an audit of where that cardholder data is stored and whether or not there's a place where malware could find its way in. And so these periodic evaluations need to be defined in requirement 12.3.1. But for best practices, CSS recommends that these audits are performed monthly. Talk about section 5.3. So we talked a little bit earlier about automatic signature updates. This is something that's extremely important, especially for organizations that maybe use other anti-malware engines and not their own. So it needs to automate. It needs to update automatically to make sure that those definitions are kept up to date as fast as humanly possible. In addition to that, they need to perform periodic scans. So think on a scheduled basis, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a month, real time scans as well, or perform continuous behavioral analysis of systems of process. So, what this means is either prevention or protection. So, what we preach at CSS is scan the files before they even have a chance to get somewhere and actually detonate so that you can avoid the issue entirely. Section 5.3.2 talks about audit logs and making sure that they are both enabled and retained in accordance with requirement 10.5.1. What this means is that both proof of scanning as well as any proof of incident or any malware that has been discovered are appropriately logged and also kept for any future investigation, audits, either internal or external.
Thanks, Connor. That was a great insight into the requirement 5. But to be fully compliant, you need to look at your infrastructure, your connected system as a whole, uh, to be fully compliant based on all the requirements of PCI DSS. So I'm glad to mention that Amazon Web Service is actually a certified PCI DSS Level 1 service provider, the highest level of assessment available. The PCI DSS attestation of compliance and responsibility summary are actually available to our customers through AWS Artifact, which is basically a self-service portal for on-demand access to AWS compliance reports. As we saw earlier, AWS offers variety of security services to meet your compliance needs. But also remember the shared service model. AWS offers multiple compliance eligible service. But I want to stress that it does not mean that any use of that service makes you automatically compliant. A good rule of thumb is that if you can set up a particular set of configurations, you are responsible for setting it appropriately to meet your compliance requirements. There's nothing like too compliant or over compliance. You can use AWS security, identity, and compliance services among the services we saw earlier to work towards achieving your PCI DSS compliance requirements and addressing some of the security controls that are required. As an example, by using IAM, you can ensure that only authorized persons can actually access cardholder data and other sensitive information, meeting the PCI DSS requirement for restricting access to data on need to know basis. We spoke about guard duty earlier. By continuously analyzing log data, guard duty can identify potential security threats and send alerts, helping you meet the requirement for monitoring and testing your environment regularly. Amazon Guard Duty malware protection, when enabled, can actually run automatic scans on your EC2 instances and container workloads on which suspicious behavior is detected. But customers are eventually responsible for implementing the mechanisms to remove, block, or contain malware detected by Guard Duty. And I know all of this can be very overwhelming, but you're not alone on this. Let's see in the next slide what additional help AWS offers to meet some of the compliance requirements. The use of PCI DSS compliant AWS services can help you facilitate your compliance needs, and AWS provides a lot of guidance in this aspect in the form of blogs, white papers, architecture guidelines, and even partner solutions. If you need help, you can engage with AWS Security Assurance Services, also known as SAS team, and AWS Professional Services team, who have deep technical knowledge of AWS platform combined with deep knowledge of PCI standards. AWS SAS and professional services offering are designed to accelerate your readiness for your annual PCI DSS assessment, achieve your lower continuous compliance through adoption of compliance as a code, and even train your internal team to become more knowledgeable in this subject. If you need help with your ongoing support of your workloads, you can also engage AWS managed services. One important call out here is that there is no one size fit all requirements. It's usually a mix and match of frameworks leveraged as best practices to meet these compliance requirements. Some of the best practices source can be Center for Information Security Benchmark for AWS, AWS Security Best Practices, AWS Well Architected Framework, Security Pillars, and more. In addition to these native services, features, and teams, we also have a vast network of partners like CSS who can help meet your specific requirements and enable you to be compliant. So, with that, I let Connor talk about how CSS can help in this regard.
Absolutely. Let's go through it. So, requirement 5.3. You need to meet it if you'd like to become compliant with PCI DSS version 4. Let's talk a little bit about how easy it actually is. So, head on over to AWS Marketplace. You can look us up at antivirus for Amazon S3, and you can actually click on the top result, and it'll bring you right here. So, deployment via AWS Marketplace is, it's seamless. It's self-service. All you need to do is subscribe. You click a few buttons. You can fill out a CloudFormation template that requires just about 10 inputs. And then you can go ahead and deploy. All said and done, it's about 15 minutes, including the stack generation from subscription all the way to deployment. So once you deploy, it'll only take you a couple minutes. You're going to be landing here. And this is our dashboard. So I want to call out here are the two top charts right here. This is malware discovered in the last week. And this actually shows that the solution is working, that it's actually detecting malware, and that it's actually going ahead and it's doing its job. Over here, we talk about the storage protection status. So, how many Amazon S3 buckets do you have? And how many of them have active malware protection applied to them? Show you how easy it is. Let's actually cover bucket protection. So, once you deploy, we're going to give you the entire list of Amazon S3 buckets that you have. And we're going to let you both apply event based and also possibly in the case of PCI DSS version 4, scheduled malware scanning. So, really is this easy. You find over here onto the left side, and you click the shield, and it'll apply event based malware scanning. And in the context of PCI DSS, any buckets that are in scope of the CDE or cardholder data environment, you can simply look them up right here and then apply event based malware protection, which will scan those files as they land in the buckets. When we talk about setting up a schedule, it's also super easy. So you can go over to the schedules on the left pane. You can go to create schedule, and what you can do is you can go and find those buckets within scope of the CDE, and you can very easily create a schedule for that. So let's select a couple buckets here, and let's go over to the schedule itself. So we'll type in a schedule name. We'll choose the scan period. So let's go monthly. And then let's look at the day. We'll set a day, and we'll also set midnight universal time. We can go ahead and click Save Schedule. And all of those buckets that you've selected there will automatically be scanned on a schedule, satisfying that PCI DSS version 4 requirement. Something else that I'd really like to go through here is seeing what's infected. So we have our findings here. And this is very important for a lot of organizations. This is built off of DynamoDB. And so we make sure that this is all configured appropriately for you. But what you want to do is you want to find down here all of your malicious findings. So this will be able to kind of show you, okay, where was this detected in the storage space? What was the actual result? Was it actually quarantined? And you can actually go ahead and you can run both a static or a dynamic analysis on this file if you'd like to learn more about what that file would actually do if it made it down to a local machine and it actually detonated. Another thing to call out here are the results tables. So we talked about it in requirement 5.3, 5.2.3, apologies, where you need to actually have proof of scanning and that this is actually being done. So all you have to do is select your time window here, and then you can export to CSV. And these results will stay so that if you are asked by an auditor, either internal or external, you can simply go and export all of these results as proof of scanning. The final thing that I want to call out here are the scan settings here. So within PCI DSS, there is a requirement for these files to be either appropriately handled. And so the way that we can do this is actually set up a quarantine. So you don't have to fiddle with a Lambda. You don't have to fiddle with anything. Our agent will handle all of this for you. All you have to do is select either delete or quarantine. You can choose what type of results you'd like to move or delete, and then you can simply select a quarantine bucket. And this will automatically any files that are found to have malicious code in them, it'll automatically be passed right over into that area. The last thing that I want to talk about, and this is more of an ease of use perspective, is that the CSS console is using Cognito as our IDP. So it integrates seamlessly with any existing Cognito user pools, any of the other major IDPs, Azure AD, Okta, whatever it might be. You can simply bring that into there. We can also, more importantly, actually send these findings over to a CloudTrail. So if you have, for example, a security lake or CloudTrail lake or AWS Security Hub, we can send these findings over so that you can actually see, okay, what is going on with this requirement in particular? What is going on with these pieces of malicious code? Have they been quarantined from a single central area for all of your security logs and your security findings within AWS? With that being said, we're going to bring back up the slides and talk a little bit more about how both CSS and AWS can help you get compliant. So, how do we help? We do in-tenant malware protection for all major AWS storage services. And this is important because if you have cardholder data in Amazon EBS and EFS, even in FSX, we'll provide the malware scanning for you so that you can actually go ahead and get compliant with PCI DSS version 4. We do have an AWS security competency. We're a member of the GSCA program, Global Security Compliance Acceleration. We're a member of ISV Accelerate, and we're also a member of the Global Startup Program here on AWS. Our solution includes two CISA vetted malware scanning engines for organizations that have requirements, such as those that need everything to be CISA vetted. That's not a problem. We use Sophos, CSS Premium, as well as an open source malware scanning engine, bringing that total to 3. And our end goal is to make sure that you have an accurate a solution as possible, reducing false positives and also reducing false negatives as well. We talked about it earlier, but these configurable scanning models allow you to scan data as they land, as well as on a scheduled basis, or even before those files are actually even written to a bucket or a volume via our API scanning model. We also cover quarantining, but this is something that our customers love about it, is that they don't have to fiddle with a Lambda. They simply select the quarantine action as well as the quarantine location. We also cover those remediation models. Static and or dynamic analysis allows you to go ahead and do that investigation in a safe, controlled environment in a virtual machine provided by the Sophos team. Finally, thank you very much for attending. Ashok, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered a lot, but do want to stress, the few aspects that one, we have a lot of services and features that are available for you to meet these compliance needs. We have ton of guidance in the form of blogs, white papers, architecture guidelines, We have support teams in the form of SAS and professional services who can help you. And last but not the least, we have a large partner network like Cloud Security who can help you meet your compliance requirements. So, with all that, you are in right hands to stay compliant and stay ahead of the game.
Thank you, everyone, so much for attending. We appreciate your time today. Please reach out to us or contact us using the button below if you'd like to speak more. Um, and with that being said, everybody, have a great rest of your week.